12:02. Let's do the roll call attendance, making sure that we have quorum. Alex, are you here? Okay. Sam,
Present.
Karen,
McMaster.
McMaster. Sorry, Karen McMaster, you're here? We heard her before.
Karen, can you unmute?
All right, we'll go on. John Seeger?
Here.
No. Here, okay. Don Valerio? Not. Doug Butler? Lorna Davidson Connolly?
Here.
Thanks. Karen DeJoy? If I pronounced that correctly.
Not here.
Here.
I'm
Theo's
jumping in.
here.
I am here. I'm sorry.
Karen McMaster.
Oh, Karen McMaster's here. Okay. All
I'm here. Thank you.
right, Theo,
Here.
Carol,
Here.
Gail,
Here.
and I'm here. So that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I believe.
Alex just joined.
And Alex, you're here now?
Alex, can you unmute yourself?
Hi.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so we just don't have Don, Doug, and Karen DeJoy. Okay, so let's move on to item 3, discussion. Number 1, revised draft goals and strategy working session. Sam and Jen, do you want to start us on that one?
Yeah, Sam, I don't know if you have any opening words. I'm happy to take the lead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks for having us here. Thanks for doing this midday. It makes it a lot easier to schedule for us. Appreciate that. We'll try to be as efficient as possible. I'm sure some of you are, using your lunch break for this, so I appreciate that as well. So really what we want to do, we do have a little agenda, but it's pretty simple, so I don't even think I'll show it, but it basically says, do you want to revise the draft goals or draft strategy list for the forum? The idea is not that we're deciding what's going to be in the plan quite yet, but what we're deciding is what should we be showing the public at the forum on the 9th? Are there things that you really want to have some public discussion around? It could be that you're even on the fence about an idea, but you want to understand, like, what do community folks think of this idea? So that's really the question we're asking. And then we just wanted to go over some logistics for there's an in-person or hybrid forum on April 9th, and then another one that's virtual on the 16th. And we just wanted to go over format, your roles, make sure you can all be there, and then schedule the next meeting of you all. Is there anything else, Sam, that I'm missing that we wanted to make sure to cover?
Other than scheduling the other meeting, no. But as for the topics we're talking about now, no, I think that's good.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm happy to share my screen, showing you the outline of the draft goals and strategies that we sent you for review. But if that gets annoying and you'd rather see people and you have it next to you, I can always take it down. So let's start there. And I'm just going to open up a discussion. I don't think we need to go through every, hopefully you could see that, right? Just give me like, okay, perfect. So I don't think we need to go over all of this. I know you got this in advance, but is there anything on here that you either want to revise, remove, or any additions? And why don't we just start with the goals, and then we can move on to the strategies in each of those 3 buckets. So I can't really see everybody right now. I think you can just speak up if you want to speak. And so we'll do the goals first. And I think my understanding from Noah is you've seen these and talked about these before. Is that right? This is not your first time seeing them. Okay. So you may not, so it's fine if you're like, we've seen these several times. I don't really have any more tweaks at this moment. And you did all get this ahead, right? I just want to double check that I'm making that assumption.
I believe it was sent out, yes.
Okay, perfect.
Noah sent this out.
I believe Noah sent this out, yes.
I'm happy to kind of scroll through if folks are sort of trying to catch up right this moment. We've got these 3 goals on the front, achieve and maintain the 10%, promote moderately priced, non-luxury housing, educate Wakefield community, support growing housing needs of senior population, and pursue thoughtful coordination between town entities and partner organizations. So it kind of covers all the pieces. It covers production, it covers education, coordination, it covers things that are not necessarily strictly affordable housing, but looking at the needs of seniors, looking at the needs of middle income households. Is there, and I'm not trying to rush you, but I also don't want to, yeah, go ahead. Iorna?
Okay,
Or,
so.
sorry, Lorna. Is it Lorna?
Yeah, it's Lorna. It's my lousy typing when I typed in
Oh,
my
okay.
name.
Okay.
It's my computer that shift key didn't work. Yeah, I would like to see, even though people with disabilities fit into many of these things, we don't actually mention people with disabilities, which range from mental health to physical disabilities to disabilities that are visible to non-visible disabilities, intellectual disabilities, those on the spectrum, that type of thing. We don't mention any of that. And although they fall into many of these brackets, we're not actually looking at what it is that we need to do for our citizens that have disabilities that fall into a lot of different categories.
And just to add to that, if you look at the population of Wakefield who's 65 and older, and you combine it with those under 65 who have disabilities, that's well over 20% of the town's population.
Yeah, great suggestion. So does anybody object? You can see my live editing here, right, in red. Does anybody object to Lorna's suggestion? If I add in something about, senior population, we can add in and people with disabilities and sort of list the different types so people aren't only thinking it's just physical disabilities, do a little education, and then in the narrative, we can mention some stats or around the extent of this population, as well as we can do a little education on what do we mean by that, and how does that relate to housing? Would anybody object that addition? Lauren, are you comfortable adding it into goal number 4? Do you feel like that's an appropriate place, like when we're talking about seniors, to also talk about people with disabilities, but not exclusively seniors with disabilities, but including? Does that sound like a appropriate place for it? Or do you have another opinion about how we should integrate that, Lorna?
Then people reading it may only get the idea that these disabilities, you have to be a senior to have them. Whereas I kind of like to see it made somewhat with the general population, because these disabilities cross all ages.
That's a great point.
Excuse me?
That's a great point, Lorna. Oh, sorry, I can't talk and type.
No,
I want to
totally.
make the notes. What if this might be a wordsmithing fix, I wonder. Because, certainly people with disabilities don't have to be seniors. What if we flip-flopped it and said, support the growing housing needs of we'll have to reword that because that sounds a little weird. Wakefield's people.
Yeah.
Wakefield residents with
Yeah,
disabilities.
maybe residents. Yeah, residents is better. Wakefield residents with disabilities, including developmental, physical, etc. And we can work on the wordsmithing on that. And then, and senior population. And then in the narrative, we can make sure to call out that this goal is about people with disabilities of all ages, including seniors with and without disabilities, and sort of really explain that in a very clear way, and then mention the statistic that if you combine seniors and disabled population, that's over 20%. I didn't see who said that, but that was a good comment. We can combine something, and then we can talk about, what does that mean? What kind of housing is that? Does that sound like a fair way to keep them linked, but make sure that people know it's, we're not just talking about seniors with disabilities?
Yeah, that feels better.
Okay.
And then Carol has her hand up.
Yeah, just wanted to, a wordsmithing thing. Maybe there's some terms such as support the growing housing need of Wakefield's, I don't know, not high need residents or not, I don't want to say special needs, but that we call it a category and it includes disability and seniors, because I think the way it's worded now, it dilutes both issues. So it's really, how do we pay attention to our residents who have special types of needs? Special needs isn't the term. So I don't want to take our time wordsmithing now, but I'm sure somebody can maybe come up with a global way to include both of them.
I love that, Carol. Theo, do you have a thought on that?
No, I was raising my hand for one of the earlier goals.
Okay, let's let me get back to you in just a second. Keep your hand up so I don't forget. You mentioned, Carol, when you were saying the comment, you said something about high needs, maybe not special needs.
Right, special needs, I think, is often used in the educational setting.
Right.
High needs, I don't love. I'm not able to come up with the term that I know would grab this, but it's something about, Wakefield paying attention to our residents who have specific needs, like seniors and people with disabilities, so that we don't dilute the needs of either of those populations.
Is it supporting the development of, or supporting the development of supportive housing that meets the needs of that meets the diverse housing needs of people with disabilities and seniors?
Right, or how about, or respond to the specific housing needs of Wakefield's popular or residents with disabilities, including, well, et cetera,
Yeah.
and seniors, something like that.
Wow, I really like that.
Okay, so I think this is where we're landing. Let me see if I can get this in here. I'll leave some of these other things just in case we go back, but and I'll include the examples. I won't have XYZ there. So let me highlight this one in blue so you can just see where I think we're landing. I want to get a dark blue so it's easy to read. Did you want to talk about supportive housing in this? Sorry, I'm not seeing who's talking. Who mentioned that just a minute ago?
That was me, Theo.
Oh, Theo.
I think the responding to the specific housing needs does it well.
And then maybe in the narrative, we can talk about supportive housing among, like home adaptations and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all, well, yeah, I don't, yeah, there's,
Go ahead, yeah.
I mean, there's other types of more, right, group homes, or other more intensive supportive housing. I don't know, Carol may have some better examples.
Okay. Okay, so let me cross this out so we don't get confused. So where we're leaving this, unless there's another suggestion, is respond to the specific needs of Wakefield's residents with disabilities, including, developmental, physical, disabilities, and senior household and seniors. And then in the narrative, we can add in something about supportive housing, such as group homes, home adaptations of existing homes, etc. And we can think about, more, maybe some examples, maybe some stats, without seeing the actual wording of the narrative yet and letting us work on that. Do people feel comfortable with this direction? Are there any other suggestions on goal 4 or any other thoughts on this? Okay, perfect. So Theo, let's hear what your thoughts were on, you said an earlier goal here.
So it was number 1, achieve and maintain 10%. Like in our earlier visioning, we had, maintain Wakefield's existing, this is just the language from one of the planning guidelines we did last time. So I liked the maintain existing affordable stock above the state's 10%. Um, yeah,
Okay.
right, and states is,
Oh, thank you.
yeah, possessive.
So let me highlight that in red so people can see what we're talking about here. What
One
do
thing
folks
to-
think of that? Yeah.
This is Samantha, by the way. One thing to kind of piggyback off of what Theo is saying is you might want to, I mean, I don't know how everybody else feels, but is the goal to provide enough and to actually meet the needs of affordable housing in Wakefield, or is it just to meet the SHI, which I know that the SHI has its own importance. But I think that that should be thought about. And if the group wants SHI, it doesn't make a difference to me, but I do think that it needs to be just make sure everybody's on the same page.
Aren't they kind of separate goals?
They can be, yeah. I mean, we could sort of combine them if you want. I'm sure I could think of a wordsmithing way to do it, but
Yeah.
you could also put them in as separate goals.
Doesn't number two kind of
Yeah,
help?
because number 2 kind of addresses that, but it specifically talks about middle income. It doesn't,
Yeah.
which is not necessarily, that's really the more attainable versus affordable, and both lowercase a affordable. But that's one thing you could potentially look at adding it there.
Get there.
As meeting the local housing needs of both attainable, affordable, I don't know, however you want to phrase it,
Yeah.
but it just, I know that was something that got brought up from the survey and had and from the research from the housing needs assessment. So I wanted the group to be thoughtful in that part.
What do folks think about the way I just redlined that? So keeping this top one, maintain Wakefield's existing affordable housing stock above the state's minimum 10% goal. Because when you have the pipeline and it will get you to above. And then promote housing that addresses local housing needs, including the moderate price. Do you want to mention something else there? Do you want to mention something more broad along with including, or how do you want to handle that?
I think, I mean, do you get technical to say including housing affordable for households below 80%? Or, I mean,
It's in the, so we're including below, I guess it's,
is it, but for households that are below 50 and that are below 80?
Or do we say low income and eligible for subsidized housing? Do we say that?
well, eligible could mean a whole host of things because it can be eligible at 30%, 60%,
Right.
50%. I
Yeah.
mean, it just depends on how that regulatory agreement is written. So that could be a little fuzzy.
If you want, we could do the 50% and 80% AMI, but we could also just say very low income and low income households and then explain it in
So-
the narrative. So it's like a
Sounds good.
little less technical in the heading.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So what I would say is,
For very low and low income.
I'll fix the grammar and stuff later,
Sure.
don't worry about that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I think we don't need this. I think we could just say including for and moderately. I would change this to household then. I would say
Mhm.
moderate income households. And I think what I would do is just talk about the non-luxury thing in the narrative, just so this is just talking about income.
that's fine.
And okay.
My other suggestion would be that we move the one about residents with disabilities and seniors up under this one, since it's sort of broadly talking about promote housing that addresses local housing needs.
Mhm.
It
You
just seems to,
can, yeah, you certainly can. I mean, this can be done in so many ways, Carol.
yeah,
It's
just-
more of a political choice.
Ah,
I don't
okay.
know if some
Then
folks.
I'll stay out of the political choice.
No, I'm not saying that to dissuade you. I just mean if you call it out separately, it puts more prominence on the
Ah,
seniors and
okay.
disabled. If you wrap it into this, I would say in my own judgment that it gives it a little less prominence, but
No,
there's.
no, I didn't mean wrap it
Um,
into this. I meant just
Yeah.
moving the goal that we just wrote as
Oh,
number
just
3.
change the order.
Just
Oh,
change the order since it
I'm
flowed
sorry, I
better.
misunderstood.
I first thought
think-
exactly what you were thinking. Maybe we
Okay.
could roll it in, but then went
Okay.
the same place you
So
did.
just
So
to
just
move
seemed
it
to
up.
flow better there.
Yeah. Okay, so really make it number 3 and put the educate down as number 3.
Right. Yep.
That actually increases its prominent, even though this is not technically a prioritized list, people will read it that way. It's just human
Sure.
nature. So, is
Just a
everybody-
suggestion. I don't know if the rest of the group is okay with it, but that was my
people
thought.
comfortable? Anybody uncomfortable with that change? Okay, perfect.
Sam
I'm
has his
sorry,
hand up too.
I
Let- Gail, were you just raising your hand because you're comfortable or you want to speak?
No, I just want to make sure, like, I think I lost track a little bit here. There's housing that's needed for the very low income, or we're talking about the 80 and below.
50 and below, yeah.
Right. And so is this paragraph still addressing housing for people that make the 120 or a little higher? I mean, because it seems like we're really getting to the point, if you
Yes.
look in the paper, you either have, you have housing for $1 million, and then like there's very little that's, under 600 at this point. So I just want to so it's like there's multiple things. I mean, housing is just overall like unattainable.
Right, it is in here, and
Okay.
basically we just added more incomes into this.
Okay.
That's not just about, like, up here is just about, let's get above that 10% and maintain above 10%. This second one is talking about what incomes are we looking at promoting housing, because we know our local needs. And we added in, we kept in the moderate. That's what you're talking about, the moderate up to 120 AMI. And we're really just adding in that below 80 and that below 50 to say it's, it's not exclusively moderate. We still know we need other, diverse income ranges to address our local housing needs, even when we get beyond that. And I'm gonna clean this up. I know it's getting super messy, but I'll make sure that's clear when we clean up the narrative and, okay.
And Jen, Sam has his hand up.
Yes, Sam, go ahead.
Hi, other Sam. I wanted to comment, and I feel like it's somewhat related to, but that I feel we need to address the kind of housing that actually, like, what is that called that meets this moderate income level? And where are we putting it, right? So what kind of housing does moderate income actually achieve? Is that apartment? Is it condos? Is it still single family homes that are just like more starter size? And then are we putting that downtown? Are we trying to fill other open areas of town? Like, I feel like there needs to be more detail, and it doesn't necessarily have, maybe it's a separate goal unto itself, like about infill development or middle housing or mixed use, like a more specific type and place, and not just income level, something that's a little bit more tangible, I feel like.
Yeah, and so what do folks think? So we've done this in several ways. Sometimes people prefer that we kind of wrap it into saying we want diverse housing options for these incomes and this kind of housing in these locations. Could be in one goal. And this is more common with the way I've written it, is we pull out a separate goal that talks about housing types and locations. In general, obviously, we're not gonna, provide a narrative that talks about every single zoning district and whatnot, but I think that we could provide in the narrative saying that you want to focus, on multifamily, mixed use, mixed income, in, alternatives to single family homes, in your downtown walkable areas, something along those lines. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I'm just giving you an example of, you know, what we've done in other communities. So how do people feel about that? Like, raise your hand if you feel, number one, that you like the general idea of saying something in the goals about housing types and locations without talking yet about what we say. You can just raise your real hand or your Zoom hand if you're not on screen. Okay, does anybody object to that? Theo's a yes, right? Not an object.
Yeah, I'm a yes.
Okay, Gail, are you a yes or
I'm gonna object.
you're object? Okay.
Because I think the goals should be general. I mean, isn't the goals are kind of like, hey, this is what we want to achieve. How we want to achieve that, isn't that really on the strategies section? I mean, aren't we really there saying,
Yes
hey,
and no. Yeah, yes
hey,
and
this is how
no.
we can do that?
It's very common to have a general goal saying, you know, we want to promote housing in these areas. I'm just going to say, we want to promote more multifamily or mixed income or mixed use rather within walking distance of downtown.
That's Don Valerio.
He's
What's
on
that?
now?
Somebody was trying to log in. I just wanted
Got
to.
it already.
Okay,
Already on.
thanks.
Oh.
Got on.
Okay, so that's very common and it doesn't tell you enough for it to be a strategy. A strategy is like reuse those two schools and rezone certain, you know, we're not saying how you do it. We're just saying we want strategies that promote this kind of housing. Maybe we want smaller units. Maybe we want options for seniors to downsize. Maybe we want more, you know, you can infer some of that because we talked about seniors and we talked about special needs and whatnot, but it doesn't explicitly say, therefore, we want these kinds of housing to balance out the existing stock, essentially.
Okay.
Does that make more sense, Gail? Just
Yeah,
the
mhm.
examples? Okay. So does anyone object now to adding something in about housing types and locations? And I know the devil's in the details, so I just want to make sure the premise is okay. All right. So now let's talk about, I'm inclined to advise you to just make it a separate goal. Because it actually can address several of these goals. It can address, you know, your SHI goal. It can address the income goal that you have. It can address the senior disabled goal. So I would be inclined, and where I would put it, and you can tell me, no, okay, I'm not really in control, even though I sound very bossy. Where I would put it is after you talk about the household types. So you talk about household types up here because you're talking about incomes. Then you talk about household types here because we're talking about, you know, seniors and disabled. I would actually put it before you start doing education and coordination. So I'd add it in, oh, I already put add. I would add a goal about housing types here. And so that would be goal number, if this is 3, this would be number 4. And then we'd have 5 and 6. So before I get too bossy and get too far in this, people okay with the direction I'm heading in so far?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
just
definitely.
speak up if you don't like something I'm doing. Okay. So then let's talk about the types of housing. So Sam talked about, remind me if I'm forgetting something, basically alternatives to single family. I'm reading between the lines a little bit. You didn't totally say this, but alternatives to single family housing stock, mixed income, multifamily, smaller units, supportive housing. We talk about supportive housing a little bit in the senior too. I think it's okay if it gets a little repetitive, just to hit home. Sometimes people, you know, might zoom into the seniors and then they might not realize that, oh, when we're talking about, you know, these supportive housing types, we're connecting that with seniors. So I think it's okay to get a little repetitive, but what housing types would you want to mention in this? I just threw out a bunch and Sam did too, but just tell me what you'd like to mention and I'll start taking some notes. Did anybody object to the ones I just threw out?
I don't think so. I mean, we've talked about starter homes,
Like townhouses.
townhouses, yeah.
Wish there were more townhouses.
Do you like the term gentle density or, I don't want to force it on you. I happen to like that term, but if you don't like it, I don't need to use it. But that's what I would call townhouses, two-family, that kind of thing is like a gentle density in addition to, more of a mixed-use multifamily. So it's not like either or, it's just like you want the range of housing types. But tell me if you're like, nope, that's not what I want. Just tell me.
Is this an area where you've seen other municipalities put in town-owned affordable housing?
I'm just gonna add that gentle density so we don't forget to talk about it.
Yeah.
You can say that, you can say including, and what I would do is I would talk about it in maybe locations
Mhm.
or types of opportunities. And we can say something, and it's not really gonna look like this. I'll make this into
Yeah.
real sentences, but it can be something like including town-owned properties, adaptive reuse. I know you're talking about schools. Do you want to talk about adaptive reuse or redevelopment potential?
Sure.
I'm assuming you want to talk about downtown,
Mhm.
like within walking distance, or how would you want me to phrase? Like I would talk about proximity.
Well, it would make sense that we wrap it into what we just voted on with the MBTA 3A stuff, right? That's why we set that apart.
In MBTA communities, we talked about, or we called them the like neighborhood commercial corridors. So you'd have the Albion, North Ave, Main Street, kind of traditional downtown, what people think of with Wakefield. And then there's also Greenwood, which has its own downtown.
Great.
It's small, but it's still one of our historic neighborhood corridors. Something else that I don't know if the group wants to think about for housing types, just to back up just a little bit, are cottages, like
Mhm.
cottage courts or anything like that.
What do people think? Are you familiar? We talk about it in one of the strategies, actually.
Yeah.
Does that include like what we would term to be the tiny house thing? Or is that bigger than tiny house?
I
but
think it's
not as
bigger
big
than
as-
it's similar but bigger than tiny house, and tiny house can be either like in a village, like a cottage court kind of creates a new village as well. But tiny houses can also just be a form of ADU in your backyard. So if you like the idea of tiny homes, I think I would call that out separately.
Well, wait a minute. If tiny homes are on wheels, does it still count as an ADU?
They cannot be on wheels. That's considered a mobile home.
Yeah, they don't
separate.
need, yeah, tiny homes can be on a foundation. I know that on the TV show, they often do the ones on wheels, but yeah.
Okay, so right now, the ones on wheels,
Those
Are-
are classified as mobile homes per our building code and cannot just go up anywhere. There's a whole different set of criteria that they have to meet. In order for them to be considered an ADU, and permitted anywhere, it just as a side note, it has to have a permanent foundation. For a cottage, generally speaking, they're like 600 to 1,200 square feet because some are one bedrooms with like a small sitting room or office area. And some go up to 2 bedrooms, which would be your 1,200 square feet. So that's just a general idea of what it might look like. Whereas tiny homes are generally under 600, sometimes even closer to 400 square feet or so.
Yeah, perfect description. And I can put a little education in the footnotes or in a sidebar or something, so people know these terms and what they are.
and I'm sorry, Sam, just one more. The whole thing with tiny house on wheels, that's our local zoning, or is that state? Is that a state thing, or is that a local thing?
I don't know about the state components of it, but locally, what I've talked about with our building inspector was about in relation to ADUs is that in order for it to not be considered a mobile home, in order for it to be considered a permanent dwelling, it cannot be on wheels. So
Yeah,
it
I
needs to
think
have a
that's pretty-
permanent foundation.
I think that's pretty widespread. I'm assuming it is in state building codes, but I would have to confirm that. But I've seen that definition in many communities in Massachusetts. So I think that's, if it's not in state building code, it's actually just very common then.
Right, well, I was saying, because I mean, maybe that's something that could be rethought.
Oh, so you're saying like a
Uh,
proponent of giving more flexibility so that the kind of
Yeah.
those mobile home. Mhm.
Yes. Yes. That's what I'm saying.
Let me put down in here when we get to policies.
Right.
All right, I'll make a note. We can certainly talk about that more, and it's in the wrong formatting, but I'm not too worried about that right now.
Okay.
Any other, hopefully you can read this okay. I know it gets messy when I do these edits. Any other housing types or locations that you want to mention? Oh, go ahead, Lorna.
Okay, this is probably just a quick question. I'm just not familiar with these cottage courts. What does that actually entail? That is there a limited number of cottages that are in the same location, or I've just never heard that terminology before.
Yeah, I'll show
And
you. See if I
is
can
there
come up with a-
up to amount how many can be in the same location, or?
It's all depending on how you write the zoning, so it'll
Mm.
be a local. Let's see if I can do this fast. I'm just gonna show you the one in Concord because it's one that I'm familiar with, and I think, yeah, here's a picture of it. Here it is, Concord Riverwalk. So this is not affordable, by the way, but
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not.
but it is an example that a lot of people know. It's in Concord. This is what, you know, a cottage, it doesn't have to be designed this way. You basically craft a local zoning, it could be an overlay or other provisions that you can craft to kind of determine what these look like and how many units and what the density and how much open space, how big the, you know, how big the units are, if there's common areas, how many cars per, like all of that is based on a local zoning, basically amendment to your bylaw that you would create. But Concord did it, and this is what the one in Concord looks like. And it's very cute, it's very expensive. It's lovely for seniors. In particular, there's a nice community, you know, so it really helps prevent isolation or can. And you can see there's a lot of common space. I believe these are set up as condos so that there's a common ownership of the property. There's not lot lines, but you own the, at least the walls inside the cottage. I'm not 100% sure if you own the outside of the cottage too. Someone here may know the details. Doesn't have to be set up like this, but I think that's pretty common. But it's a nice way to allow that gentle density. That's
Yeah.
not a, you know, and it can really fit into lots of different contexts, including places that are, you know, have more of an open space feel to them. Because they can be designed as that cluster. Karen, I see your hand.
So am I correct by also saying it's a little bit different, but isn't Harts Hill considered cottage style? Are you familiar with that?
I'm not. Sam, do you know?
Is that what cottage style is?
It's sort of, it has so Harts Hill is set up like a little court.
Right.
And so that's sort of similar. The difference with the cottage style development that I brought up that we're talking about here is that it's typically set up as a single family or a two family structure.
Okay,
And you
gotcha.
typically have them side by side versus stacked. So it wouldn't be a traditional, whereas I think most of Harts Hill in that area is like a 4-unit building or so. I think there might be one that's two, but most of them are more than 1 unit and they're stacked. So
Okay.
the cottage ones, it gives more of a feel of a single family structure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, so I think we've got a good list going here. Sam, I'm wondering, Sam Hockenberry, I'm wondering, do you have any other, you brought this up, so I just want to kind of circle back to you. Do you have any other thoughts about types, locations, or anything else that you think we should say in this?
Yeah, I think that this is, I'm glad that it's just in here. And I mean, I've mostly been thinking about mixed use in downtown, and trying to, I want to make clear, like when we're presenting this to the public, that this isn't about building more giant apartment buildings in random places throughout town that, you know, are just like this sudden surge of another 120 people with their cars on your street, like in this one corner, like that it's trying to promote more diversity of options, but also diversity of transport needs and locations, that it's like all parts of town will have to carry some weight here, that we're not gonna overdo it in one spot or only focus on one kind of thing. So like, that's what I wanted to make sure that we're trying to clarify to people. Personally, I don't know how I feel about tiny houses on wheels. But that's, I think generally, I think I just want to try to make it clear that we're not forcing any one particular agenda or option, or making one neighborhood feel like that they have to bear the weight of adding thousands and thousands of people, right? Like, I just don't want that to be the takeaway.
Yeah.
So one quick terminology add is maybe thinking about utilizing incremental development.
Yep.
It's kind of like the next logical increment, the next logical component of development. Like if you're just thinking of North Ave, where we approved MBTA communities, you go from the one-story commercial space to adding the residential component above. That would be the next kind of the next level of development that we would be looking at.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So when I write this up, I'll keep all those things in mind and try to craft something that really describes you know, being very strategic, thinking about transportation connections, thinking about incremental development, general density, thinking about connections to other goals and other initiatives like the MBTA communities, et cetera. I know the devil's in the details, but what I'll do is I'll write up something that I think reflects what you're talking about, and I can run it by Sam and maybe Theo. I don't know if you've been involved as the chair. You're the chair. Are you the chair of this group? I'm just assuming you are.
No, Bob's the
No,
chair.
Bob is.
Oh, Bob, I'm so sorry, Bob. I don't see you that well in here. So
I'm in the conference room with Sam Elliott.
yes, of course you are. So maybe I could just run the wording before the forum by you guys, by you and Sam, to make sure that you know, someone on the group is looking. And then we've got to print the posters up. So we won't have a chance to have another meeting with you all, but know that it's still a draft when it goes to the public forum, and it can
Sure.
certainly be changed, and we expect to change it again.
I do
And
have
then
a question. Oh, sorry.
On
I
number
have a-
6, Jen,
Yeah,
we need to add the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board of Trustees.
okay.
Good point.
What?
I talked to Noah.
Oh.
I couldn't make the last meeting because my dad was in the hospital and I couldn't get connectivity from inside the hospital. But I talked to Noah afterwards about the fact that we have an Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board of Trustees. And I'm envisioning down the road that we're going to put in this housing production plan that the town council is going to review the HPP twice a year. And the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board of Trustees would have the lead on this, and they would be reviewing it every quarter.
Mhm.
And then they would be able to report to the town council on a regular basis concerning the housing production plan. So putting them in number 6 is critical to me because they're one of the major. And if you look at the last housing production plan, 2015 to 2020, the biggest recommendation on there was an affordable housing trust fund. Now, it wasn't done, but when you look at that old HPP, after it says establish an affordable housing trust fund, it then talks about the relationship between the board of trustees and the town council, the planning board, the ZBA. So I think it's imperative to have them listed in number 6.
Yeah, that sounds like a smart add to me. Does anybody object to that? Okay, perfect.
I do have, I want to just interject because I have a hard stop at 1. So when you took this to the town council, I only briefly read the article that was in the Wakefield item. What was I want to make sure that what we're putting in here is addressing whatever feedback you had gotten from them. It seems like there was some pushback about the need for affordable at the town council, but maybe I just read that wrong.
Say there's more questions about how we explained the needs and the number of units. So we're basically not talking about that in this presentation at the point.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so we don't need to interject anything in here that would help to whatever, get it across for the town council, because that's where this is gonna ultimately
Well, I
go.
guess I'd ask the folks that were there, my takeaway, I mean, we didn't talk about the strategy ideas or the goals. We were just talking about the needs assessment. I know that there's
Okay,
a little bit of pushback on the number of units. And you'll notice we don't talk about the number of units here. We just talk about getting to the 10%, and then the rest is a little bit vaguer.
okay.
I don't know, Bob, if I forget who else was there, but if anyone else has any thoughts on that, or if you think we should be changing something, based on the politics.
No, the discussion was over the survey and the housing needs assessment. There was some discussion about, and we've discussed this before during this meeting, about the SHI numbers and the 10% versus what actually is affordable. That was some of the discussion at the town council meeting. A lot of it, that's educating folks as to the difference between the two, as we're trying to address in some of the earlier goals that we talked about here this morning.
Okay,
All right, so I do see that we're running short on time, and Sam, I'd like to, not Sam Hockenberry, I'd like to ask you, Sam, if you feel it would be appropriate to ask the group to send comments on the strategies by email, as long as it's not, violation of open meeting, and we send it to you and me, and then we can shift gears.
We did that with the questionnaires as well, so that should be
Yes.
perfectly fine. They can send it to myself and or the consultant directly.
Perfect.
You and Ella.
Yeah, is
It-
Noah or
it-
Jen?
It can go directly to me, and I'm happy to forward it along because y'all just got an email from me recently too, so that's fine.
That might be the easiest, because I do want to make sure we have time to talk about the forums coming up and your role, and make sure everybody kind of knows what's going on for that. So if it's okay with everyone, I'd love to shift gears on that.
Sure.
Okay, so let me just take this down. So what I do want to put up is that agenda. Well, I don't have it. Here it is. Okay. You can still see my screen, right? Okay. So we have the dates of the forum, the 9th, I believe at 5. Is that the correct time, Sam?
Yes.
Okay. And the way we're structuring the in-person is we do a hybrid, our firm does a hybrid of an open house style and a traditional public presentation Q&A style. We don't find the traditional public presentation with just, oh, now what are your questions and comments? We don't find that's a super productive way to hold a public meeting. What we prefer to do, because we think it's people give us more thoughtful comments, and we get more people to actually tell us what they think than the loudest folks in the room, is do a presentation, lay out, what have we done? These are the draft goals. These are the draft strategies, kind of walk people through it. And then we create a series of boards that will be around the room with Post-it notes and dot stickers. And we ask people to give us their thoughts on the goals and the strategies. And then people are not on a soapbox talking about taxes and, all these things that, may have some relevance here and there, but it tends to derail the meeting. So we like to disperse the comments in that way, and we get written comments then. And what we do is we type them all up, we make them into a formal summary of what we heard, and then we take it back to you all to say, do we think we need to change or add any strategies or the goals based on these responses? So we also like it because we get things in writing that way. And what we tend to do is we have each of the, how many goals do we have now? 6? We just added one, so now I lost track if we have 5 or 6. But however many goals, we basically have a station for each goal. And at that station for each goal is also the list of strategies that would relate to that goal. And so if we have a goal, you know, on seniors, and housing for disabled individuals, then we'll have the goals that relate to that strategy, mostly. Sometimes, I'm sorry, the strategies that relate to that goal. Sometimes strategies relate to more than one goal, and we can kind of flag that and cross-reference, but basically we'll have a station with a board that explains what the goal and the strategies are. And then another board that's the comment board, where people can put Post-its, and we usually ask them to do dot stickers on things they particularly like or feel strongly about. And then what we like to do, and I wanted to get a kind of a census of how many of you will be able to be there on the 9th. We like to have each of you stationed around the room. You could be in pairs, whatever, you have more people than goals. To just talk with folks, you know, that come around to your station, talk about, you know, why are we talking about this goal? Help them answer questions, like if they don't understand from our presentation, what does this strategy entail? Just to talk with them a bit. But you're not recording what their thoughts are. You're asking them to do that in writing on the Post-it notes and the dot voting. So that's the thing. And then at the end of the night, we like to have you guys who have been staffing those stations, just do a quick report out of, these are the things people talked about in general. Here's 5 of the sticky notes as a sample of what we heard, or here's the dot voting. People really liked this particular strategy, or they've had some concerns about this other one. And so you'll do a little presentation at the end. And then for the virtual, it would be similar. It's a little different because it's virtual, but we try to mimic as much as we can an online version of that, but we do more, you know, live collection through Zoom polling and that kind of thing. And then we don't really do report outs because we're sort of everybody's seeing everybody's answers as we go. So let me pause there and just ask, raise your hand if you know for sure you're able to be there on the 9th is the one I really need you. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Can you see me? I don't know if you can see me with the camera.
I
Bob,
see you, 6. Okay, if I counted right, I think I have 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or maybe 7. Might be 7, 6 or 7. Okay. And then I don't know, Julie, Alex, I can't see you. Oh, Karen can, John, great. Okay, that's perfect. So we have plenty to cover the goals. And so what we'd like now, let me ask too, because I know it starts at 5. How many of you who are coming could also be there at 4:30 so we can orient you and show you where to stand in that 1, 2, 3.
yeah, I can, yes.
See you. 4. Okay. 5, Sam. Okay, great. So, and then for the folks that are going to be coming right at 5, you know, we'll make do. That's fine. As long as some of you are there early, we'll make sure you know where to stand. And then the folks that get there a little bit closer to 5 can sort of join one of you, as long as we have enough folks to cover the stations. So those are my main logistics. Is there anything else? Oh, I think, Sam, did we change the location from the senior center, or is this?
No, it's still at the senior center. It's just in a different room than we had first talked about. So everything is fine.
I have a question, Jen. In the spirit of inclusivity, there may be people who, for mobility reasons or cognitive reasons, have a hard time managing that format of getting up and, you know, succinctly writing their idea and putting on there. So, you know, maybe do you usually have someone who helps people? I'm certainly happy to help people if they need it, but I'm picturing in my mind some seniors who struggle. Maybe they have Parkinson's, maybe they have something else, who couldn't manage that.
It's a great thought. And we typically don't designate an official helper, but any of my team is, you know, we basically step in if we see someone, you know, but I think that's a great idea. We could even say in the presentation that, you know, Carol is available to help if anybody needs some help. I think that's a great idea.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you for
Thank you.
suggesting that.
Sure.
Lorna?
Okay. Because this is open to the public, is this notification going to go out well before 2 weeks or so? Because I'm thinking there perhaps may be some deaf or hard of hearing individuals that would like to attend this, but would need either, an interpreter or a cot or something like that for communication access.
Sam, I'm not sure what outreach has been done already. Can you fill folks in on that?
Yep, this information is gonna be going out today or tomorrow. I had to wait until I had 100% confirmed a space and confirmed that the remote or hybrid components were set up. So both of the dates will be going out today with the information. So it has, if you have disabilities or need any accommodations, you need to follow up with us. And that's explicitly on the agenda. It'll be on all of the notices that go out. So there shouldn't be any issues with that. And Jen, one thing I was going to add, going off of what Carol was talking about, it might be helpful to have the capability of like a worksheet if somebody doesn't want to physically get up, so that they could possibly fill it, or if they feel uncomfortable being in front of somebody, that somebody might read what they have, but to have a worksheet that they could fill out at their space with kind of just each of the different goals, maybe, I don't know, just kind of something else to throw out there if that may be helpful.
Yeah, that'd be easy for us to just create the boards as a worksheet too. I'm happy to do that.
The other thing to make sure we understand is this is a community forum. This is not a public hearing. It's not an actual meeting of the Housing Production Plan Advisory Committee. But Jen, is this being hosted by you, the consultant, or is this being hosted by, I think it's hosted by the Housing Production Plan Advisory Committee?
I think that's more appropriate. And I don't
Yeah.
know, Sam, if we usually provide some outreach materials, and I'm sorry, I wasn't sure of the details of what we had provided you, or if you had done up the ad yourself.
Yeah, I can talk to you. I can email or we can chat on the phone after the meeting. But I'm happy to work out all of that and what we've done in the past for outreach and make a plan up together.
Great.
And every month, the senior center goes out with that newsletter. I don't know if they've already done their April one yet.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. That's a good thing to remember.
Perfect.
Okay, so in the interest of time, Jen, is that all you need for the public forums? All right, in the interest of time, we have to discuss our April regular meeting. We have an election on April 22nd. Oh, Lorna, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, it just had to do with the other question. I don't know why the hand's still up there for.
Okay.
It just had to do with, isn't this still considered a meeting that's open to the public, the one that's going to be held at the senior center?
Yeah, like I said, it's a community forum. So yeah, it's not one of our meetings, it's something we're hosting. But as
Right,
far as
okay.
quorum and things like that, we don't, and the public notice, we don't have to do that. Although we will make sure that we get, public notice out. But April meeting, when do we normally meet?
On
Second Tuesday of the month?
yeah.
Second Tuesday of the month would be the 15th. But the problem is, I'm sorry, the second Tuesday of the month would be the 8th. But we're already having this community forum on the 9th and then another one on the 16th. And that's a lot of ask for us on the Housing Production Plan Advisory Committee. So Jen, do you think we need to have a meeting, and when should we have it in April, considering we're having the two public forums?
Yeah, I actually, Noah might disagree with me on this, but he's on vacation, so he doesn't get to weigh in. So I would say that if you just want to do a meeting in early May, and at that meeting, we can decide on revisions based on the public comments, and then we can just basically put the plan together for you. I know that we need to finish our work, I believe, in June. So then you could have one more meeting in June and be done with it.
Okay, thank you. Item number 4 is public comment. Is there any public comment?
Hold on. If we're talking about early May, I would like us to try to nail down a date and time so that I can work on getting all of the space or all of the notices out. I would recommend probably the 6th or the 7th or the 8th. Well, not the 8th. 8th is potentially town meeting. So the 6th or the 7th, to do in that first full week of May. And we can even do a midday one if that seems to work better for everybody's schedule. But I would like us to nail down that so I can get that noticed.
I vote, May 6th.
I would
Does anyone
also
have any problems
support
with-
the 6th.
Would that be the evening meeting?
It could be an evening meeting or it could be a day lunchtime meeting, either or.
I go with an evening meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it may take a little longer because you're gonna be digesting the community forum results and whatnot, so you might need a little bit more time. I would suggest doing a evening meeting.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Sam, I didn't mean to.
No, it doesn't make a difference to me. I
No, no,
just,
as far as, I was moving on to the next item, sorry.
no, that's okay.
So if we're done with the May meeting, is there any public comment? I don't know that I see anybody from the public.
Hi,
If
I'd like
not,
to, Julie Scott would like to speak.
Oh, okay, Julie.
Hi, thank you, everybody. I'll be very brief. Thank you so much for the presentation a couple weeks ago to the town council. This was the highest quality presentation I have seen from an entity like yours in years. I was involved with the master plan, MAPC did that. It was not well done, was not well received. The open space and rec plan, same thing. Bike and ped plan, MAPC, same thing. The climate leaders was done by a state entity, same thing. Your work is superb. It's college level writing, which is nice to see, not filled with a lot of cartoons and pictures, but in-depth, great ideas. And I love hearing how you work so well with the community members here represented at this meeting. This is the best quality piece of work I have seen presented to the town council in about 30 years. So thank you for doing that. The
Thank
process
you.
has been wonderful. In 2019, 2020, January specifically of 2020, I was meeting at the head of the lake with Waterstone and Cabot and Forbes. They had lawyers there. They were talking about the development up there, and all they harped on was our housing production plan had expired. And they were selling us a larger building unit at the head of the lake because they knew the issues with having an expired housing production plan. It did not help us at all. I thank so much Councillor Vincent, Councillor McLean, and former town councillor Ann Danhe, because they really heard me when I was speaking about this. Not only did they hear, but they acted. And thank you so much again, Councillor Vincent, for your work to bring this forward. I have talked to Councillor Vincent about this. Samantha, if you could make sure that when this document is done, that it's put on the town council website where it's dated as of its date of acceptance, date it 6 months before it expires so that the town council remembers that they have 6 months before it expires to act to get the 5-year extension. I believe that's still an option. And also have the
It is.
firm expiration date, because if we had acted 6 months before the expiration date, the previous plan would just be expiring, I think, pretty much around now. So that would save us a lot of worry later on. As far as the presentation that you did for the town council, any quality, high quality work like that should really be on your website. I would love to have gone through it. Instead, I had to watch the town council meeting. So if you could put any presentation, even what you're doing in a couple weeks, put that on the website so that people can look at it first. It'll save you a lot of time because people will go to the meeting and be more prepared. Thank you so much for the survey as well and extending the time period for the survey. It matters greatly that people were able to provide input. So as this, you're talking about the housing production plan, my dad lived in a house that had been produced in the late 1800s, but he left it in his trust that while he was alive, it was our job to keep having him earn money so the house was increasing in value. And he wanted to die at his home if possible. And we were close. I think we had him move out about 4 months before he passed away. But he was one of those people that you talked about, the one person in a home. And it was during COVID that he became very sick. So we didn't have a lot of.
Julie, if I can have you pause for just a second, please do not leave this meeting. We still have official business of being able to vote on minutes. And if too many people leave, we're not going to be able to vote on the minutes, and we
Yeah,
are
thank you.
substantially past the 30 days that they need to be posted. So please do not leave. And Julie, if you could, go ahead and finish your statement. Go ahead. Thank
I
you.
know you do housing production plan creation for other communities. If there was something available, as I was the executor of the trust, if there was something available at the federal or the state or the local level to help my father move out of that house quicker and retain money, because again, that at the time was the only way we were able to generate money for him. And as a fiduciary, that's what our jobs were. We would have taken a really serious look at that. So one of the reasons that we have so many one-person homes throughout New England is that's really how that person is generating income for their end-of-life issues. But there's nothing available for that. And that's really why it's a production. You have, those houses are already produced, but how do you produce them so that they're empty so families can move in? So reaching out to state and federal leaders might be something that you might want to include in your goals in that regard, because I don't know of anything such as that is being available. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Julie. So on item 5, approval of minutes, the minutes have all been sent out for September 11th, September 11th, 2024, January 21st, 2025, and February 18th, 2025. I'll entertain a motion to accept all 3 minutes. We'll just do them all in one. Anyone have that motion?
I'll make a motion to approve all 3 sets of minutes.
I
Second.
second it.
All right, thank you very much. So we'll have to do a roll call vote. All those in favor of approving those 3 minutes. I'll start with Alex.
She's gone.
She's gone. All right. Sam Hockenberry.
Yes.
Thank you. Karen
Yes.
McMaster.
Yes.
John Seeger.
He's gone.
He's gone. Don Valerio.
Yes.
Thank you. Lorna.
Yes.
We didn't have Karen. Karen didn't come on, right? Theo. Carol?
Theo's here and Karen's here.
Oh, Karen DeJoy.
There's 2 Karens.
Oh, Karen, sorry,
He's talking
wrong
about
Karen.
Karen DeJoy. Sorry, go ahead.
All right. Theo.
Yes.
Carol.
Yes.
Gail.
She's gone.
She's gone. All right. And I'm a yes. That should give us more than enough.
Yeah.
Okay. My only, item 6 is chair comments. My only comment is I will see you all at both of the, community forums. But my term ends on April 22nd. And I am appointed to the advisory committee in my capacity of being a town council member, which means legally I'm no longer on the Housing Production Plan Advisory Committee effective April 23rd. I don't know who the town council is going to appoint to take my place. Presently, Doug Butler's on along with me because there's 2 slots for town council members. I'm going to suggest to the town council member that it should not be one of the 2 new people coming in because we have a short period of time to get this done. We do have the luxury that 3 people on the town council were on the town council during the last housing production plan. So they should be familiar with the last housing production plan, which will tie into, how we put the final project together for this housing production plan. But right now, I just can't tell you who's going to take my place. I will thank all of you when I see you in person on the 9th or on Zoom on the 9th and 16th for your dedication to the town and your willingness to serve on something this important, but also something that's, pretty time consuming. So I do thank you for being involved in this very important endeavor. And Jen, what Julie Scott just said is extremely true. You are one of the best consultants that I've seen in my 3 years on the council. I was pleased that we had you come in to talk to the council. The council doesn't do that enough. After that meeting, I actually stressed to other town council members that we should on a regular basis have consultants come and appear before the council, especially when they draft documents for us. So I thank you and your company for the outstanding work product that you've provided to us so far and look forward to working with you at least through April.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. I appreciate it.
All right. And does anyone else have anything to add before I'll entertain a motion to adjourn?
Just to say thank you, Bob, for being a productive chair, and we really appreciate you managing the process in addition to all the many hours spent with town council. So thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Anyone have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll
Right.
second it.
Okay. do we need to do a roll call on this too? All right, Sam Hockenberry,
Yes.
Karen McMaster,
Yes.
Don Valerio,
Yes.
Lorna,
Yes.
David Sim Connolly, Theo,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. All right, thank you all very much. I appreciate you taking the time during the day to meet with us.
All right.